The 30th of April, 1943. A Spanish fisherman working the cold waters near the port of Huelva on Spain's southern coast hauls something unexpected from the sea. Not a fish. Not wreckage. A man. Or rather, what remains of one. The body is dressed in the uniform of a British Royal Marines officer, a major, by his rank insignia. He is floating face down, tethered to a rubber life preserver, a black briefcase chained to his wrist. The fisherman rows to shore and summons the local authorities. Within hours, Spanish officials quietly sympathetic to Nazi Germany have notified the German intelligence service, the Abwehr. The briefcase is opened. Inside are letters. Extraordinary letters, personal correspondence between senior British officers discussing the Allied invasion of southern Europe. Not Sicily, as German High Command had feared. Greece and Sardinia. The plans are photographed, the body is returned to British consular officials with courteous apologies, and the photographs are rushed to Berlin. Adolf Hitler reads them personally. He orders immediate reinforcement of Greece and Sardinia. He pulls Panzer divisions from Sicily. He is entirely, catastrophically convinced. The man in the water had never existed. His name was Major William Martin, Royal Marines, and he was a fiction. His body was that of a Welsh vagrant named Glynndwr Michael, who had died in January of that year after consuming rat poison. He had no family to ask questions, no military record, no one to miss him. British intelligence had taken his unclaimed corpse, dressed it in a uniform, furnished it with a manufactured life, and dropped it into the Atlantic from a submarine. The letters in his briefcase were forgeries. Every detail of his identity, his photographs of a fiancée, his theater ticket stubs, his unpaid bill from his London club had been invented by a small, extraordinary team working in the shadows of wartime Whitehall. And it worked. This is the story of Operation Mincemeat. By the spring of 1943, the war had reached a pivotal and precarious moment. Allied forces had driven the Germans and Italians from North Africa, and the next logical step was a thrust into Europe from the south. The problem was that everyone knew it. German strategists, Axis field commanders, even informed civilians across occupied Europe could look at a map and draw the obvious conclusion: if the Allies were going to invade southern Europe, they would almost certainly come through Sicily. The island sat like a stepping stone between Tunisia and the Italian mainland, barely 140 kilometers from the African coast. It was obvious. Dangerously obvious. The Allied commanders planning Operation Husky, the genuine invasion of Sicily, understood that surprise was essentially impossible through conventional means. Sicily was heavily fortified. Axis forces there numbered roughly 350,000 men. The beaches were defended, the airfields alert, the coastal artillery sighted. An assault with no element of deception would cost an enormous number of lives, and might fail outright. Intelligence chiefs calculated that even a partial redistribution of Axis forces away from Sicily, even pulling a single Panzer division to Greece or Sardinia, could be the difference between a contested landing and a catastrophic slaughter. The man who solved this problem was Flight Lieutenant Charles Chumley of MI5, and he solved it with an idea so audacious it bordered on the absurd. What if, he suggested, the Allies could make Germany believe the invasion was going somewhere else entirely? Not through a feint, not through radio deception or double agents, but through a dead body carrying documents so convincing that German intelligence would stake the defense of southern Europe on their authenticity. The idea reached Commander Ewan Montague of Naval Intelligence, who recognized its potential immediately. Together, they took it to their superiors, who took it to Winston Churchill. Churchill approved it in 3 words: proceed with mincemeat. The operation was run out of a small, unremarkable office in London, and the level of detail that Chumley, Montague, and their team invested in the construction of Major William Martin's identity was extraordinary, almost obsessive. They understood that German intelligence was professional, methodical, and deeply suspicious of anything that appeared too convenient. The documents themselves had to be genuine enough to survive expert scrutiny, but the man carrying them had to be equally real. A corpse with fake letters was useless if German analysts concluded the body had been deliberately placed. So they built a man. They obtained a photograph of a naval officer who resembled their chosen corpse, and used it to create an identity card in the name of Major William Martin, born in Cardiff in 1907. They assigned him to Combined Operations Headquarters. They invented a father, a retired solicitor, and wrote a letter from him, stiff and formal, the kind of letter a distant, awkward parent might send a son in wartime. They invented a fiancée named Pam, and wrote 2 love letters in her hand, including a photograph of a young woman, actually a clerk from MI5 who volunteered her image for the purpose. They added a receipt from a London jeweler for an engagement ring. They included a stern letter from his bank manager regarding an overdrawn account, the sort of mundane detail that no forger would think to include, precisely because it made William Martin feel real. The military documents themselves were crafted with equal care. The centerpiece was a personal letter from Lieutenant General Sir Archibald Nye, Vice Chief of the Imperial General Staff, addressed to General Harold Alexander in Tunisia. The letter, written in the casual, slightly indiscreet tone of senior officers writing to trusted colleagues, referred to forthcoming operations in the Mediterranean, operations which, it was carefully implied, were not going to Sicily at all. The word Sicily appeared in the letter, but as a cover story. A red herring within a red herring. The real targets, the letter suggested, were Sardinia and the Peloponnese in Greece, with Sicily being used as an intentional diversion to confuse German planners. If you are finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. There are dozens more stories like this one waiting. On the 19th of April, 1943, the submarine HMS Seraph surfaced in the pre-dawn darkness off the Spanish coast near Huelva. Commander Bill Jewell and his crew had been given sealed orders that none of them fully understood. They were carrying a specially constructed canister, roughly the size and shape of a torpedo, packed with dry ice to preserve its contents during the journey from Scotland. The canister was opened. The body of GLNDWR Michael, dressed in his Royal Marines uniform and strapped to his life preserver, was carefully slipped into the Atlantic. The briefcase was chained to his wrist. Jewell noted the wind direction it was blowing on shore. He gave the order to dive. The current and the wind did exactly what the planners had hoped. Within hours, the body was spotted. The Spanish naval authorities in Huelva were informed, and it was at this point that the operation entered its most delicate phase. Spain in 1943 was officially neutral, but its intelligence services maintained close ties with Germany. The local German intelligence agent, a man named Adolf Klaus, moved quickly. He made contact with the Spanish authorities, who in a breach of international protocol that must have delighted him allowed the briefcase's contents to be examined and photographed before being resealed. The photographs reached German naval intelligence within days. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr, assessed them personally. His analysts examined the letters minutely, the stationery, the handwriting, the phrasing, the watermarks on the paper. They concluded the documents were genuine. The assessment was passed up the chain of command with a recommendation that it be treated as authentic intelligence of the highest importance. When it reached Hitler, he accepted it without hesitation. The Germans had, for their part, invested heavily in their own Mediterranean intelligence apparatus. Their signals intelligence operation was sophisticated, their network of agents across Spain and Portugal extensive. They were not naive, and they were not trusting by nature. What made Operation Mincemeat succeed where simpler deceptions might have failed was precisely the density of human detail that surrounded the documents. German analysts found no anachronisms in Major Martin's identity. The love letters, the bank statement, the theater tickets all dated correctly, all consistent with a man who had been alive and going about his life in London just days before his death. The military letters were written in language consistent with the known styles of the officers who had supposedly signed them. There were even traces of sand in the briefcase's lining consistent with it having been in North Africa, which aligned with Major Martin's supposed travel itinerary. Compared with other Allied deception operations of the period, Mincemeat was unique in its intimacy. The American-led Operation Bodyguard. The broader campaign to deceive Germany about the D-Day landings relied heavily on false radio traffic, dummy armies, and the systematic manipulation of double agents across years of careful work. Mincemeat operated on a different principle entirely, that a single, perfectly constructed human moment could outweigh any volume of electronic intelligence. No signals intercept can replicate an overdrawn bank account. No double agent can manufacture a love letter that smells faintly of perfume. The Germans' own doctrine prioritized human intelligence over signals, and Mincemeat fed them exactly the kind of intelligence they were trained to trust most. The results were measurable and dramatic. In the weeks before the Allied invasion of Sicily on 10th July 1943, German reinforcements were redirected away from the island. The 1st Panzer Division was transferred to Greece. Additional infantry divisions were sent to Sardinia. By the time the genuine invasion force hit the Sicilian beaches, German defenders there were understrength and poorly positioned. The island fell to Allied forces in 38 days faster than almost any optimistic projection had anticipated. Allied casualties, whilst significant, were far lower than pre-invasion estimates had feared. Historians have debated the precise degree to which Mincemeat contributed to this outcome, and it would be dishonest to attribute everything to a single operation. But the redistribution of German forces is documented in German records captured after the war. Hitler's own notes reference the confirmed intelligence from Spain. The deception worked. Operation Mincemeat remained classified until 1953, when Ewan Montague published an account under the title The Man Who Never Was. The book became a bestseller, and a film of the same name followed in 1956. For decades, the identity of the man whose body had made it all possible remained unknown. It was only in 1996 that investigative research confirmed beyond reasonable doubt that the body had been that of Glynndwr Michael, a homeless man from Aberbargod in Wales, who had died in January 1943 at the age of 34. He had no known family. He had died alone, unclaimed, in a London mortuary. British intelligence had given him a posthumous purpose that he could never have imagined in life. In 1998, the town of Welsh erected a memorial plaque to Major William Martin. It honors a man who never lived. The briefcase that William Martin carried into the sea has never been recovered. The canister that transported him from Scotland to the Atlantic was classified for 50 years. HMS Seraph, the submarine that delivered him to his destination, was decommissioned in 1963. A small number of the original operational files are held at the National Archives in Kew, London, and can be examined today, including some of the forged documents, painstakingly recreated by the team at MI5 in those strange, dark months of 1943. 30th April, 1943. A dead man drifts to shore on the coast of Spain, a briefcase chained to his wrist. He has a name that was invented. A fiancée who never knew him. A bank manager who never wrote to him. A father who never existed. He served in a regiment that had no record of him. He died before the operation began, and he won it before the first soldier set foot on a Sicilian beach. German panzer divisions moved across a continent because a Welsh vagrant's body told them to. Hitler redirected the defenses of southern Europe on the strength of a love letter written by an MI5 clerk in a bank statement for an account that had never been opened. The invasion of Sicily succeeded, and the road to Italy opened, because a small team of British intelligence officers understood something profound, that the most powerful weapon in wartime is not a bomb or a tank or a battleship. It is a convincingly human lie. Major William Martin, Royal Marines. Born Cardiff, 1907. Killed in action, never.